Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull, and we are going to be crowning the keynote speaker of the Last JabroniCon. Let's see what jabronis we've got here. And why my ring light has turned itself off. Oh, hello, Adrien. Bonjour de la Bastille à toi aussi. Okay, let's see. I was thinking... Ben Shapiro destroys the Barbie movie. Of course, there is Jason Aldean fires back at Woke Mob. And the more I look at Jason Aldean, the more it occurs to me that he is, in fact, actually just Tim Pool with the added cowboy dress-up playset. Hola, Phoenix. Okay, I think we're gonna just start out and check out Ben Shapiro destroys the Barbie movie for 43 minutes. How's everybody doing?
Well, folks, I just got back from...
hang on, I gotta turn this up so I can actually hear this dickhead.
Well, folks, I just got back from the theaters seeing Barbie.
Somebody, I think it was the Surfs, noticed that he's actually wearing two different Ken costumes in this video.
And Oppenheimer. I'm about to review both of them. I'm going to tell you which one of these is the best blockbuster of 2023 and which one is maybe the worst.
I bet he loved our movie.
Wow, given the title of this video, I'm completely on tenterhooks about which one it might be.
Right, Ken?
For those of you who can't wait that long, I'm going to give my review of the Barbie movie in the most Oppenheimer fashion.
What the f***? Run.
Well, I mean, getting off to a great start here. Playing the suffering of the people the defenseless civilians who had the atomic bombs dropped on them for laughs. That's keeping it classy there, Ben.
So the things I do for my audience,
See, if Jason Aldean is Cowboy Tim Pool, fucking Ben Shapiro is like if you gave Tim Pool Urkel's voice.
Producers dragged me to go see Barbie movie. Barbie,
another
movie.
fucking Ken costume.
I have thoughts. This video is sponsored by ExpressVPN.
Wow, he's got thoughts, y'all. He's got thoughts. This is an extra special Ben Shapiro episode. This is the one where he's gonna have a thought.
Let me begin with my...
See, he actually has to announce that to his viewers because they're not used to it.
A generalized assessment of the movie. This movie is not just a piece of shit. This movie is a flaming piece of dog shit piled atop an entire dumpster on fire, piled atop a landfill filled with dog shit. It is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. On every possible level, it is a horrific movie. The only...
Well, see, I'm wanting to see this more and more as the more you talk.
The thing that can be said for this film is production design. The production design is really nice. The costumes are really nice. Also, it's really hard to screw that up. It's really hard to screw that up because you literally have...
Actually, it's not that hard to screw it up.
This to model after. All you have to do is this, but big. Okay? It's really not tough. But put aside all of the beautiful costumes, which is there for the ladies, and all of the production design and the Barbie universe and all of that.
Yeah, so put aside basically everything that makes people want to go and see the movie.
Every joke that happens in this film happens basically within the first 45 seconds of the film. So, for example, Barbie turns on the water and there's no water. Ooh, because, you know, like in Barbie house, there's no actual water. Do you get it? And then she drinks, but there's no actual liquid in the actual.
See, the idea is that he doesn't understand the jokes that are. He doesn't think that when jokes are related to social commentary that he doesn't get. that those are also
Cup.
jokes.
Oh my god.
Because, you see, I mean, in this universe, their idea, their model for what jokes are, is Steven Crowder, a man who does not know how to tell
God,
jokes.
because she's a Barbie doll. Oh, I get it. Okay, that's all the jokes. There are no more jokes for the rest of the film. The movie's a show. Okay, so conceptually, the movie is a show. I want to ask this. Who is the intended audience for this film? Who's the intended audience for this film? So I'll tell you who the intended audience for this film is, and I can tell two ways.
Well, I mean, it seems like that you just kind of answered that question right now there, then.
One, the previews on the film, and two, the people in the audience. So the intended audience for this film is moms and their 8-year-old daughters. That's the intended audience for the film. I know because the previews for the film were all kids' movies. I'm talking like G or PG rated kids' films. We're talking like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, you mean a film that, much like Barbie, is based on a property, based on a, cinematic universe that has intergenerational appeal.
Or Trolls 4, or whatever it is.
Yeah, okay, so again, another thing that in particular, like, 90s kids will actually immediately be interested in. Potentially. I mean, 90s kids who go to see the Barbie movie probably would.
Those were all the previews, right? All the previews are actually directed at what the audience is supposed to be for this film.
So, people who either came to like the Trolls and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles recently, or who grew up watching them and playing with them, basically.
And if you look in the
What's your
audience,
point?
it's a bunch of moms, like youngish moms, middle-aged moms, with their like 6, 7, 8-year-old girls. That's the entire crew. This movie is not made for any of those people. In fact,
Well, I mean, funny how they all came. I mean, it seems like it was made for somebody. Somebody seems to have wanted to watch it, Ben, because it's broken all sorts of fucking box office records. Seems like maybe there's an audience for this. That's why you have to say that it's the worst blockbuster, and why you can't be doing your usual go woke, go broke shtick.
in fact, this movie is made for no one. This movie is going to make a bunch of money week one because the marketing effort has been extraordinary. I mean, whoever's the marketing team over at Warner Brothers is doing an amazing job. Week one, this thing is going to clean up at the domestic box office. My prediction is going to just absolutely fall off a cliff after that. The repeat business on this movie is going to be non-existent.
Well, I mean, repeat business on movies in general has actually kind of dropped off because everybody's fucking broke. I was just recently looking at an article the other day on how going to the cinema in the US has gone from something that people do all the time, back when it was $6 for the tickets, to being a special thing that people do on special occasions, now that the tickets cost like practically as much as fucking concert tickets used to cost.
Because it was written by two people who are so smug and self-satisfied, and Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach.
Well, I mean, you, if there's one thing that Ben Shapiro hates, it's smugness. Yeah, just out of curiosity, how I've played around a bit with the relative audio levels between my microphone and the video. How's everybody? How's it sounding to everybody? I can't tell from here. I mean, are you finding it easy enough to hear everything? Is the video loud enough? Is my voice? Can you hear me over the video?
That they have no audience. I mean, like...
It seems like you just said they have an audience there, my dude. Because you don't have a blockbuster movie without people going to watch it. That's kind of how that works.
Who thought it's a great idea? Let's bring on the people who wrote Lady Bird and Marriage Story to make a movie about a plastic doll.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole premise. That's what makes it fucking work. That's why it's actually more interesting than you would expect a movie based on a plastic doll to be, because you get people in there who are known for doing things that are a little bit out there. You know, you get like an art house director in there who got the highest praise that the New Statesman can ever offer to anyone. The New Statesman had an article saying that she'd sold out, which is like, I mean, that's like the Nobel Prize coming for the New Statesman.
That is generally played with by 5 to 9-year-old young girls.
Yes, but crucially, the point is, like, multiple generations of 5 to 9-year-old young girls. Like, fucking... I mean, when did it come out? It was like the late 50s, wasn't it? So we're talking about 4 generations to whom this to whom this plastic doll has some relevance to their, to their childhood, who have some kind of feelings about it because it's something that was in some way a part of their life, whether they like it, whether they didn't like it, whether it fucked with their body image. That's kind of the reason that it works.
So the basic idea of the film, they really have no...
I love how he's really just flailing around here, because the only line that these people have is "Go woke, go broke," and the trouble is that you can't do that when a movie is breaking box office records. So he's left accidentally explaining precisely why this movie has such huge appeal.
Basic idea of the film. They don't know whether they hate Barbie or that we're supposed to kind of like Barbie. It seems they kind of despise Barbie.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I haven't seen it. I want to see it. When I heard it was coming out, I wasn't interested, but every single thing I've heard since then, from the just amazing production design to the fact that there's like all this social commentary apparently which is the reason he hates it. If it were just sort of a boring remake, it was, like they did a live action version of one of the like Barbie cartoons from the 80s or 90s or something like that, he would probably, he would ignore it altogether. He would have nothing to hate about it. But instead they put all this social commentary into it apparently, and just look at how lush that fucking that design is. So yeah, I mean, from all that, I decided I have to see this thing. Not in the cinema because pandemic. I haven't had COVID yet, and I don't want to. But when that thing comes out on streaming, I'm definitely watching it. But, I mean, he's just left more or less explaining its appeal. He has to acknowledge that the production design's beautiful because, like, people can look at it. And even his audience can't look at that and not say, wow, that's actually really lush. And then he's like, well, but it's just this plastic doll that generations after generation of girls has played with, and it sort of takes it from more than one perspective, and it's like, yeah, that's what makes it good. That's why people are liking it.
As a fascist emblem, as we'll get to. The basic sort of premise of the film, politically speaking, is that men and women are on two sides of a divided...
You made Barbie go to Led Zeppelin concerts and smoke weed? Rock on. Yes, Ben Shapiro is 5 years old. In fact, basically all of your right-wing media personalities are acting to the behavioral standards of fucking preschoolers who get put in timeout a lot, except that they're getting put in timeout for inciting motherfuckers with guns to go off and use them on random people. I mean, that's the fucked up thing. I mean, it's easy to say, look at these dickheads. Look how what nonsense is coming out of their mouths. Why does anyone give a shit what they're saying? But then you look at the viewer figures. Probably because actually two groups of people do not seem to be flocking to see Oppenheimer. One is, or like being enthusiastic about, one is people who lived in the areas of New Mexico where the tests were carried out. I read an article by somebody who was one of the people who actually lived in the areas or surrounding where they carried out the atom bomb tests, those first ones, and said, they really weren't planning on seeing it because they were pretty sure there was no reckoning with the effect that had. And it's also not doing well with Japanese people, it seems. In Japan, it's not... I mean, there was actually a headline, Oppenheimer bombs in Japan, which, like, somebody got paid to write. And, yeah, so I'm guessing what that means is right-wingers are kind of okay with it because it does not spend a huge amount of time pointing out what an absolute horror it was that he did. that he was involved in, and how absolutely pointless it was, how totally unnecessary, and how the entire justification we learned in school about why it had to be dropped, why the 2 atom bombs had to be dropped, was just a complete fucking fabrication that declassified documents debunked decades ago. I'm guessing the reason they're not focusing on Oppenheimer is precisely that it doesn't really deal with those things, from my understanding of it, from what I've heard. I haven't seen it either. So it doesn't really piss them off in the way that this...
And they hate each other. And literally the only way you can have a happy world is if the women ignore the men and the men ignore the women. That seems...
yeah, I mean, I have to say, he's not entirely wrong there. I mean, I've found the more I ignore men in my daily life, the happier I am.
Seems to be the final outcome of this film. I was trying to separate this into problems with plot and problems with character and problems...
This is from a failed screenwriter, y'all. This is from a guy who, despite having all the nepo baby access that you could possibly have in Hollywood, couldn't hack it as a screenwriter because he's just not that good at it. He's gonna tell us. He's gonna script doctor it for us. We're gonna get a Ben Shapiro script doctor
with the politics of the film, but they're all intertwined because the thing is just a mess. It doesn't make any sense. Plot-wise, it makes no sense. Character-wise, it makes no sense. So let's just go through it from the beginning. Okay, there's gonna be lots of spoilers, but believe you me, I'm about to save you so much time.
Okay. According to Ben Shapiro, anyway, there are going to be lots of spoilers. Does that make anyone reconsider continuing to watch this? Because I don't want to like spoiler this for anyone who's actively avoiding spoilers. Let me just say that. So we'll just pause here and I'll let chat there's more stuff. Yeah, see, and right-wingers can't really bite into that as much as they can bite into something... Barbie visits the test site. Shit, I mean, and we've already got the concept of Barbenheimer. Maybe there will... Well, Greta Gerwig already said that she doesn't want there to be a sequel. But, I mean, if there was one, an explicit crossover would be something.
Because this movie is 2 hours. It feels like it is longer than the Wagnerian ring cycle.
Like, what does it say about this guy that his immediate reference to, his first, like, long opera reference that comes to mind just happens to be one of the most, like, famously anti-Semitic opera writers, composers in modern history.
It does not end. Every scene is at least 2 minutes too long. Every single scene, every beat is too...
Yeah, because this is Ben Shapiro, pacing expert. This is why he's sold so many screenplays. This is why they want him to direct.
2 minutes too long.
I'm getting word from my producers they actually don't.
It is a bad film. Put aside the politics. Like, really. I was sitting...
Like, literally, the politics are the only thing you can find to dislike about it so far.
Sitting there with a bunch of my producers. I'm a little bit more political than my producers.
A little bit.
My producers were watching this, putting the politics aside. It is a bad movie. So why is it getting...
Wait, the fact that your producers were watching it makes it a bad movie?
91% on Rotten Tomatoes because the way that it works for the reviewers is if you have the right...
Yeah, well, the way it works for the reviewers is they go and watch it. And you see, either they like it or they don't like it. And they write reviews talking about whether they like it and what they like about it. That's how reviews work. See... But no, give us some of your insider Hollywood knowledge, guy who's washed out as a screenwriter in a town where you can just make remakes of remakes and nobody cares.
Politics. And those politics are sufficiently...
His audience is the far right. His audience is like white supremacists, fucking sovereign citizen pricks, people who are like far right but want to still feel kind of respectable respectable enough, like they can point to the fact that they're not anti-Semitic because they watch a guy called Shapiro. That's his audience. But mostly, and he gets paid the amount of money that flies around on the Daily Wire and the rest of these. The kind of money that they throw at people is just utterly off the charts. Like, I mean, fucking Steven Crowder. I keep on pointing it out because it tells you a lot. Steven Crowder, a guy who has no talent, a comedian who's never told a fucking joke. The guy, he's just the entertainment. He's not the guy that they get. This is what they have for commentary and analysis. Ben Shapiro. But the fucking Crowder is just the entertainment, and they were throwing 50 mil at him, and he turned that shit down. I mean, there is a lot of money backing this bullshit. That is why it is so hard to avoid it. And that is why I pay attention to it. And also, I mean, it's like it's shooting fish in a barrel, these assholes.
Then it will get a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, even if the thing is just Drek. And I mean, boy, is this Drek. This is a Death Star sized piece of Drek. It is like, that's no moon. That's a Drek station.
Wow, that's such a clever pun. I mean, your two audience members who know Yiddish, who know like even a little bit of Yiddish cursing, will be really impressed with you there, Ben Shapiro. I mean, I'm guessing in the world, in his audience, this immediately caused a flurry of people Googling, what is Drek?
That this movie. Okay, so let's jump into it. I have like pages and pages of notes on this horrific piece of I mean, my goodness. Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. So it's from the beginning, you know what this movie is going to be, and it's going to be a very cynical take on what Barbie is, which is so weird. I don't know why Mattel would turn over its IP to filmmakers who clearly hate the IP. It's as though you were going to make Toy Story, except that toys are all evil.
Except it seems like they didn't exactly hate the IP. Not exactly. They had a critical view of it, but you can't do this production design that it makes it just look so fucking lush. If the idea is to make it look bad. If the idea is just to do a straight up say this is bad, you don't make it look this good. That is not the visual language that you would use. You would have something that was off in the color. Like, I mean, Hollywood loves to fucking use a yellow filter on cities in the global south in order to make them look seedy and shit like that. Yeah, if you just straight up hate the IP, you wouldn't make it look this good.
They're all bad, and you're supposed to hate them, and you should burn.
Yeah, I mean, it is a satire, and it isn't a satire. It's like, I haven't seen it, but my understanding is, I mean, the way they're marketing it certainly is, if you like Barbie, it's for you. If you don't, it's for you. So I'm guessing, and from what I've read in reviews, the way they're doing it is like they're trying to, they sort of have the critical view of it. They have the more sort of positive view represented. I mean, basically, they're trying to represent at least two different perspectives on the phenomenon that is Barbie. Which, I mean, I think you can call it a phenomenon. It's been around long enough that it's been pretty fucking influential. I think phenomenon is a reasonable word for it. He's wearing a 50-cent t-shirt. I mean, do you mean price, or is it the rapper? The thing is, Adria, he's wearing a Ken costume. Ken wears this outfit in the movie. The two outfits you see Ben Shapiro in this fucking thing are both outfits you see Ken in the fucking movie. That's why there are memes going around where they place Ben Shapiro's head on the undressed body of a Ken doll.
Burn them. Because that's kind of the message of the film, is that the Barbies are bad for the world. Okay, so it begins by trying to uphold the original vision of Barbie. What was the original magical vision of Barbie?
His friends who uphold the original vision of Barbie. Like, who the hell are his friends who uphold whatever the original vision of Barbie are? Like, I mean, we're supposed to pretend that this guy gives a shit about the original vision of Barbie? Like, these, I mean, like, the people getting mad over this, like, if you had told the, like, what do these conferences, what do these production meetings have to look at? Yeah, okay, guys. This week, this is going to be a little bit complicated for you, I think. You're going to have to pretend to be passionately angry about Barbie. Yeah, I know it's going to be a bit of a stretch, but you pretended to be angry about CRT for all that time, and you've managed to keep a straight face through many more ridiculous premises, so I have full confidence that you'll be able to do this. Shapiro, you don't have friends.
We have Helen Mirren here to tell us, in the form of a narrator apparently played by Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who's speaking from heaven.
Okay, I mean, also, Helen Mirren's in it? I mean, that already...
And we get a 2001 A Space Odyssey flashback. Which, again, who's the audience for this?
Well, again, yeah, see, that's the question you ask when nobody goes to watch something. When people go to watch something, and keep in mind, that wasn't just something that is a surprise in the movie. That was in the pre-release publicity, that scene. That scene was specifically released as part of the publicity to tell people who might otherwise not go to a Barbie movie, based on the fact that it's a fucking Barbie movie, that this isn't going to be what you imagine it to be. Like, this, I mean, the people who are going to see this are seeing it, at least some of them, on the strength of the fucking 2001 A Space Odyssey reference thing.
The reference points in this film, it references variously Marcel Proust, it references Robert Evans and the cinematography of The Godfather, it references 2001 A Space Odyssey,
Yeah, exactly. Like, you don't get to keep asking who's the audience when there is an audience. That is something that is a talking point that works if something actually doesn't do well at the box office.
Movie made for moms and their 7-year-old girls. Well, folks, wasting 2 hours of my precious time, 2 hours I will never get back. 2 hours where on my deathbed I will wish that I had
even more than that, because here you are pretending to actually give a shit about this.
not spent that time doing. Makes me viscerally angry. But I'm going to talk to you about something that makes me much...
He can't even pull off viscerally angry. That's how little of a shit he actually gives about this.
happier. And that is our trusted privacy partner and premier sponsor of this.
Yeah. We're not giving his sponsor
Website you've ever visited. Internet connection through their my data through a VPN. Can't that VPN log my data instead? That does happen, but it's impossible for their VPN servers to store data. They even had one of the big logs of what you do online. That's EXPA. Okay, so it starts with Helen Mirren explaining that back in the day, girls would only play with dolls that looked like babies. And then she says that this could be fun, at least for a while anyway. Ask your mother, because your mother actually hates you and doesn't like being a mom, you see.
Well, so the idea is because childcare, playing at childcare is enjoyable some of the time for at least some people, but that you wouldn't want that to be the absolute only thing you ever do. That means that your mother hates you, apparently. Like, this guy hates his mother, is what we're actually learning, and that does not surprise me at all. Because the idea here is that if your mother actually has a life in addition to her, like, fucking raising you, that's somehow throwing shade on you, and it's like, fuck no. In fact, I mean, every single bit of actual research that's been done on this says it's actually better for the kids if they have parents who also have, other lives, because they bring other things in there, and they're less likely to resent their kids as a result. They're actually, fucking less likely to resent their kids if they're not foregoing the things that they were the other things they were passionate about before having kids. Jesus, what a prick.
So if you ask your mom, she wants to play at not being a mom sometimes. Okay, so
yeah, exactly. This means she hates her kids. Like, if your mother has hobbies, Ben Shapiro wants you to think she hates you.
the basic premise is Barbie is supposed to be.
If she has like a fucking occupation outside of raising you, he wants you to think she hates you. Wow, yeah.
Independent woman who liberates all womanhood, but she fails. And she fails for two reasons. One, she's actually a tool of the patriarchal capitalist system. And two, the real world has rejected the message of Barbie, which is that women should run everything. Okay, so this is all not implicit. This is explicitly said. At the beginning, the monologue, you have Helen Mirren saying, because Barbie can be anything, women can be anything. At least that's what the Barbies think. See, in the real world, women can't be anything. And that's one of the messages of the film.
Well, yes, because the thing is, there are systems of oppression, and the point is, you see, Ben, outside of your little bubble, most people kind of already know that, even if they don't necessarily have a whole lot of theory to explain it. But it's not something that isn't a niche idea at this point. It's actually fairly widespread and widely understood. Again, this is why a movie like this gets made in the first place, Ben.
In the real world, men run pretty much everything, which is weird. Who greenlit this piece of shit?
Well, maybe people who thought that they were going to make a shitload of money with it, which they did. So, I mean, again, these are questions you ask when a movie fails. These are not who greenlit this piece of shit is what you ask when a billionaire fail son decides to scrap all the brand recognition of one of the most recognizable social media platforms in the history of social media. So recognizable that it's got its own fucking verb in the dictionary. And he actually goes and scraps that and makes it a letter of the alphabet that he can't even trademark. That's when you ask who greenlit this piece of shit, and of course we already know, so you don't need to ask. When somebody comes up with an idea for a movie that, having been made into a movie, breaks fucking box office records, then you don't necessarily need to ask, because clearly whoever greenlit this piece of shit, it probably is not going to be hiding.
I mean, Greta Gerwig is a lady. She's making a good living off of this. Margot Robbie is playing the lead. In fact, the entire cast, aside from basically Ryan Gosling, is women. So, it seems like women are doing okay.
Wow, because you see, the idea here is that because there are women who are making a bunch of money off of the Barbie movie, that therefore the problems that the Barbie movie brings up about how society works, those don't exist. The only way that you could actually have a Barbie movie that is true to its analysis of there being, like, institutionalized misogyny and patriarchy and all that. The only way you could be true to that is if you had an all-male cast of a Barbie movie, apparently. I mean, okay, go on.
But, again, put aside the meta logic of it. I'm going to go through, like, a lot of beats here. So it starts off with the idea that mommy dolls are bad and insufficient. But then they criticize Mattel for discontinuing a mommy doll named Midge. Right? Midge is the pregnant doll, and it was discontinued. They're like, that's bad. Wait, but hold on, you just said that dolls about motherhood are bad, but then this one...
No, see, the word he also used there, he accidentally used an accurate word because it was insufficient. Because it's not that playing with, play that relates to, like, childcare is inherently bad and nobody should do it, nobody should let their kids do it. The idea is that it's probably not enough because they're, kids, girls in particular, have interests beyond the things that are made available to them to play with. Like, so it's insufficient. It's like you might want it as part of your diet, but you wouldn't necessarily want to just make it the only part of it.
Don't look for any sort of logical coherence. There's a
Well, I mean, we're watching Ben Shapiro. I don't think anyone's looking for logical coherence.
Citizens United reference. They say all of the members of the Barbie Supreme Court are women. And then they are speaking out about Citizens United, that corporations are not people. It's literally a Citizens United reference.
So what? I mean, okay. I mean, there is a point that could be made that actually Citizens United wasn't at the watershed that it's made out to be, because actually the idea that corporations are people and that bribery is speech had already been upheld in 1976 in the Buckley and Vallejo decision. And really all Citizens United did was dot a few I's and cross a few T's. And that actually the really bad First Amendment decision that came out that term was Holder versus Humanitarian Law Project, which held for the first time since the 1960s that it is permissible to criminalize pure political speech. But, okay, but leaving that aside, like, I mean, yeah, Citizens United, I mean, it did suck, and it's a fucking liberal movie, so, and it's a thing liberals are concerned about.
Who is the audience for this? Who is the 7-year-old girl who's like, yes, I too have a very informed perspective?
Actually, I would not have been at all surprised if my, he says that, but my nieces, the stuff that comes out of their mouths completely spontaneously, I mean, neither of them 7 anymore, but they were at one point both 7 at different points. One's 9, the other's 14 now. Yeah, actually, I mean, kids pay attention to this shit in the real world, not in Ben Shapiro's little fucking playhouse here.
On the Citizens United decision. And then they say that logic and feeling at the same time, it doesn't diminish us. It proves that we are more than, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, this is really, I mean, that's just really basic. Why are you getting so emotional about it, Ben? Because it's true. You can feel things intensely and still reason them out. And actually, you're probably doing a worse job of being rational if you're in denial about your emotional reactions to things.
It's all propagandistic. And then it sets up the dichotomy. The dichotomy is that men and women are in complete and utter contradistinction in terms of their roles. So women only exist if they are completely free of men, and men only exist if they are completely free of women.
Okay.
And the problem is set up for Ken.
He looks like he's dressed up for the test cricket here.
Is that Ken is dependent on Barbie, right? Because Ken is kind of secondary. And we also set up at the very beginning that Barbie...
Yeah, look, this is the other outfit you see fucking Ben Shapiro dressed up in this video.
Barbie doesn't like Ken. She finds Ken annoying. She finds Ken ridiculous.
Yeah, but Ken's got a cool guitar like Tim Pool does.
Which, again, is sort of against the concept of Ken and Barbie. But the basic idea is that Barbie is an independent woman and Ken is completely superfluous.
Well, which is, I mean, that is kind of a take on the way the toys are marketed. Because the whole thing is entirely a Barbie-centric universe, and every other character that they made into a doll is somehow like an appendage of Barbie. It is Barbie is the main character. That is literally like that's just literally the whole way the Barbie universe. That's not something Greta Gerwig and the screenwriters of this film came up with. That's the way Mattel has actually marketed the Barbie toy universe more or less since its existence.
Then go to the beach, and there's a scene on the beach where the Kens are
I mean, I was like 7 years old, and I was asking things about Iran-Contra, for fuck's sake. And wondering why gay protesters were comparing Reagan to Hitler in relation to AIDS. Like, I mean... this idea that kids are just these, like, apolitical empty vessels is such nonsense. Like, I mean, my younger niece, who's 9 now, like a year or so ago, just out of nowhere was talking about that she hoped one day maybe the cops would actually treat black people well. Like, that. This was just apropos of nothing. This came out in reference to So, and she, you know, and expressed a belief that it seemed like the institution it was not going to be doing that. You know, I mean, kids think about the world that's like the main thing kids are doing is trying to make sense out of the world they're in, and they hear about this shit.
It's supposed to be the lifeguards and the ladies are playing on the beach, and we get a series of gay masturbation jokes. Again, it's an audience for children.
Well, as you pointed out, it isn't just for children, though. Like, I mean, you think a movie for children that is specifically and exclusively for children is going to be making 2001: A Space Odyssey references? Like, okay, I mean, I have no trouble believing that actually, you know, little kids at the time of Citizen United, you know, not too little, but like 7, 8 years old or whatever, would be asking about that and be concerned about it because you know it was actually a major topic of conversation, and kids think and talk about the shit they hear grown folks talking about. That's how it works. I mean, like, what was he hatched out of? Did he hatch fully formed? Was he never a fucking kid that he doesn't know this? But I don't really think that anyone thought that, you know, 7 and 8-year-old girls are like, oh, I really hope that we're going to really sort of go deep in on this 2001: A Space Odyssey illusion that they're making here. I hope Barbie has her own big pink how.
They're talking about beaching each other off, right? There's like...
Yeah, not to mention, like, Animaniacs. Animaniacs was full of political shit. I mean, that was, like, I think for 90s kids was, like, formative snark.
A line where Ken says to another one of the Kens, I'm going to beat you off. Get it? Get it? You get it? Because it's like beat you off, but beat you off. And then they repeat that no less than 4 or 5 times in the span of 45 seconds.
If I wasn't severely injured, I would beat you off right now, Ken. I'll beat you off with you any day, Ken.
Anyone who wants to beat him off has to beat me off first. Ow.
He actually says beach. But yeah,
We'll beat both of you off at the same time.
it's you know, it's almost as if this movie isn't just made for like fucking for the under 10s. Like, maybe this is meant to appeal to an older audience as well.
Beats both of us off.
Nobody's gonna beat anyone off.
Okay, can I just say, I love that dress. I love the design of that dress, and if it were in red and black rather than pink and white, I would totally fucking wear that.
Bazinga.
Because it's just such a great gay masturbation joke. You got to go for it. I mean, what else will the 7-year-old girls in the audience think if you don't go for the gay masturbation joke on the beach?
Well, I mean, I think most of them would not get it because he says beat you off, and the idea, and they would probably think that this means something to do with kicking somebody off the beach, and their parents who brought them there would be like sort of laughing, and they'd ask, why is that funny? And you'd say, hey, I'll tell you when you're older.
Clearly.
By which time you probably already have found out.
We get black female President Barbie because this is, of course, the greatest of all possible worlds. So Kamala Harris, the Barbie version, is the president of the United States. And then we get the...
Wait, is he saying that because there's a black female Barbie who's president, it has to be Kamala Harris because, like, what, she's the only black woman?
Right. Then we get the actual plot point. Plot point number 1. Barbie has irrepressible thoughts of death. So again, at this point, you might be thinking to yourself, wait a second, isn't this a kid's movie?
No, obviously it fucking isn't. At this point, it should be, for all the reasons you just explained, it should be pretty fucking clear that it is not a kid's movie. That at the very least, it is not exclusively a kid's movie. But yeah, actually though, I mean, toys thinking about their own mortality, that is actually something you find in children's stories. That is not something that, you know, there are all sorts of stories like that, where it's like, you know, a toy wants to be real, and then finds out real means you die.
Isn't this supposed to be made for 7-year-old girls? Nope. It's about existential angst over mortality.
Yeah, because it turns out Barbie didn't come out just last week, motherfucker. Barbie's been around. Like, your motherfucking probably played with them. I played with them.
That's what this film.
Like there are like literally at least 3 generations who grew up influenced by the Barbie sphere in one way or another. So no, I mean,
Is about. Now, again, interlaced.
yes, angst. Hello, Ludlow. Life literally had a restaurant called Choky. Rocco's Modern Life literally had a restaurant called Choky Chicken. Angst. Yes, angst. Angst. I mean, he's not even able to commit to. It's like, I mean, if you want to pronounce it the English way, obviously it's angst. But he's trying to also, like, sound intellectual, I guess. And so he tries to make it sound German, except he makes it sound like German spoken with sort of Tony Gregg's South African accent. There's angst. There's a lot of angst on the pitch today. Yeah, the land of misfit toys and Rudolph the Red. Yes. Yeah, exactly. I mean, out of all of the things that he has pointed out to get angry about that this could not possibly be for kids, this is the one that actually there is a long tradition of putting into kids' literature, for fuck's sake. Yeah, like the Misfit Toys. I mean, there's all sorts of Christmas movies, Christmas cartoon movies that I remember from growing up. Don't ask me the names of them, I didn't pay that much attention. But where the story is, you've got these depressed toys, these reject toys, or these toys that, they become real and it means that they can get hurt and die and shit like that. And that's kind of, I mean, that is like the least incongruous thing to have in something that kids are amongst the intended audience for.
Through all of this is just more and more and more politics, right? One of the Barbies is a trans Barbie.
Okay, I'm gonna just CW this because we're gonna get some phobia. Yeah.
And this is treated totally normally, as though this is a...
Yes, because it actually is, you see. The fact that it's in a Hollywood movie, the fact that a Hollywood movie with that is intended for a mainstream audience, that is also that is definitely intended to include at least some kids, that's how you know it is actually normal, that it has actually reached the point where, society has advanced to the point where, at least theoretically, the idea of a trans woman being in your films, at the very least, is accepted. Yes. So yeah, it's become normal, motherfucker. Deal.
Barbie, with a voice again deeper than my own. So,
I know what you mean with Rudolph, because the idea is, I mean, they fucked with him because his nose, because they thought his nose was different. And then suddenly they're okay with him, and it's cool because it turns out that his nose is useful. Like, what if his nose was just a different fucking shape and it wasn't particularly useful? They still shouldn't be fucking around with him.
Barbie starts to have these irrepressible thoughts of death, and this comes along with physical symptoms, like, for example, her feet flatten out. Again, this is one of the few cute jokes in the movie, is that Barbie walks around, and just like a normal Barbie doll, when you take off the shoes, the feet are shaped like the shoe, like the high heel. But now she's turning into like a real world person, and so her feet collapse, right? And so she goes...
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is... Like, did he not have a fucking childhood? Because, I mean, this whole thing, toy becomes real. I mean, think about it. I mean, there's Pinocchio, there's the fucking Velveteen Rabbit. This is one of the probably most heavily written, heavily explored areas of childhood literature. Yeah, exactly. Rudolph, with your nose so bright, generate some surplus value tonight.
goes to see Weird Barbie. So Weird Barbie is a Barbie that has been played with too hard and has all the knowledge, not only about Barbie Land, but also...
Yeah, guess what? I mean, this is, again, how you know that he does not actually have any women who will talk to him. Because everybody, I mean, not everybody, but it isn't exactly an uncommon thing to have the Barbie you completely fucked up in all sorts of weird ways, and you decided to cut its hair, not realizing it didn't grow back, and so now it's actually accidentally got really kind of funky lesbian hair. And you did all sorts of fucked up shit, and oops, you pulled the arm off, and the head isn't on quite straight. I mean, like, has this guy ever talked to women? Like, women who... well, he does know one woman, because he somehow convinced one to marry him. And that, to me, is a much greater mystery than the fact that this movie got made.
About the real world. And apparently there's a connection between the people playing with the Barbies and the Barbies. So if people playing with the Barbies are sad, then the Barbies also get sad. Weird that this has only happened to Barbie, because it turns out that lots of people are sad and have played with Barbies for a very long time. But...
well, maybe it's because it's a movie about Barbie.
that's the plot point. Fine.
Like, maybe if it were a movie about fucking Rock'em Sock'em Robots, which... or something like that, then the Rock'em Sock'em Robots would turn out to also get sad. Maybe that's... I think maybe the reason it's Barbie gets sad in this movie is because it's the Barbie movie, Ben. Maybe, if you check your notes, maybe that's in there.
Fine. And again, the concept of like a Barbie that was played with too hard is very funny, because everybody has seen that before, and they somehow...
well, yeah, exactly, that's why. That's why it's funny, thank you. You noticed, okay, I actually underestimated you, so you did actually understand why that's actually a funny joke.
blow this. Somehow they make this into a not funny thing.
Says, I mean, I love that this guy, he's like, so forget, who's the fucking audience for it? Well, I mean, I know one person who very clearly isn't. And it's kind of quirky that they decided to have him be the one to review it. Because, like, I mean, weird, like, fucking right-wing troll who clearly never had a fucking childhood. Obviously, this movie was not for him.
So Weird Barbie is ugly, and she has bad makeup.
She isn't actually ugly, though. Not really. Yeah. I mean, she's got some, like, questionable ink on her face, admittedly. Eye makeup's not bad. I wouldn't say she's ugly, but I mean, I'd buy her a fucking drink.
Makeup and all the rest of it. And she informs Barbie she has to go to the real world, and she has to find the person.
No, because Hitler actually slept with his niece. And, I mean, we have enough lore from the Shapiro household, thanks to Ben not knowing just what kind of information he's actually giving up, to know he's never fucking... yeah, he's never made her come in her life. I imagine his wife needs to listen to a lot of Barry White to get her husband's nasally wandering out of her head. Yes. But, I mean, yeah, but of course the song, Let's Get Together, that's what she plays, that's what the ringtone for when her boyfriend calls.
Who is playing with her, and she has to make that person feel better, because that will heal the problem that she's having in Barbie Land. Okay, so we have our plot point, right? We have the thing that's going to launch us off into the rest of the movie.
Oh, wait, and I missed it.
She has bad... Somehow they make this into a not funny thing. So Weird Barbie is ugly, and she has bad makeup and all the rest of it. And she informs Barbie she has to go to the real world, and she has to find the person who is playing with her, and she has to make that person feel better, because that will heal the problem that she's having in Barbie Land. Okay.
Okay. So, I mean, already, cool premise, actually. Cool premise. I like it. And again, I mean, what you're actually getting, and if he had not been hatched, fully formed, as you see him now, and had a childhood, this would actually bring back some memories of some of the fucking books and cartoons and movies and shit that people watch as kids, because this is, I mean, they're riffing on things that pretty much, I think, everybody got some version of growing
So we
up.
have our plot point, right? We have the thing that's going to launch us off into the rest of the movie. And then it's just a complete mess from here on in.
I mean, he said that like 3 times, and so far each time he goes back to giving his fucking plot synopsis, it actually ends up sounding pretty good still.
At least to this point,
This is probably why he did not succeed as a screenwriter.
it's kind of dumb but coherent. From here on in, it makes no sense.
Kind of dumb but coherent. No comment. I got nothing there.
At all. Again, Kate McKinnon sets up the dichotomy that pretty much the makers of the film hate Barbie by suggesting that you can live in Fantasyland with Barbie and you can take the Barbie shoe, or you can take Birkenstocks, right? You can become like a Portland lesbian and you can learn about reality.
Well, no, pterodactyls are cool. No, I mean fully formed. I mean, he, like, you know, like in that scene at the beginning of, like, I think it's the first Austin Powers movie. You open up this thing, and he's just sort of standing there fully formed and actually sort of vaguely discomforting. So not like a pterodactyl chick. Pterodactyls are based. I like pterodactyls. If a pterodactyl would probably not make this like shitty video. No, fully hatched like a fucking clone or something in a movie starring Donald Pleasant.
That's going to be the choice that you have to make, but not before she makes a joke about Ken and wanting to see the nude blob he is packing under those pants.
Somebody said that?
Perfect for 8-year-old girls.
Wow, I mean, again, it almost seems like maybe the intended audience included somebody who's older than the age of 8. Ben, you're making a very persuasive case for the fact that actually this movie is probably made to appeal to an older audience, Ben. Maybe go through your notes, you know, you get one of those one of those fucking, you know, cork boards, put up to get some string, put the thumbtacks up there, tie them up. Holy shit. This movie isn't really primarily made to appeal to 8-year-olds.
Ladies, mothers, just be warned. Ken and Barbie head off to the real world to try to find the person who is playing with Barbie.
And again, just look at the fucking, just the whole production design. I mean, the visuals on this already just make me want to see it, honestly.
And immediately,
and I mean, somebody was talking about leftists acting like this is Battle of Algiers, and I have to say, and I just have to say, I have not seen like a single one of the fairly politically diverse array of leftists that I'm in touch with acting like it's Battle of Algiers, except like not unironically anyway. You know, at the most, it's like, oh, it looks like a Hollywood movie that would be enjoyable to watch, and it's pissing off right-wingers.
upon arriving in the real world, Barbie is hit with an
I mean, apparently the politics, not surprisingly, since it's a fucking Hollywood movie, are pretty liberal, actually.
overwhelming tsunami of sexism. Like, right away, boom.
Wow, yeah, so it really is the real world, then. I mean, you want to see a sexism tsunami, it's gonna have Ben Shapiro's face.
Walks in, and a bunch of men just leer at her and say, "Give us a smile, blondie," which is something that no one under the age of 70 has said to a woman in the recent past.
Which he would know, because he's just, you know, he goes out in the world as a woman, and of course all women would trust him to listen respectfully to their experiences.
Give us a smile, blondie. Seriously? We
Wow, yes, street harassment is a thing, Ben.
get Barbie explaining that all of the men who are leering at her and gazing at her, they have an undertone of violence.
Well, yes, yeah, exactly. See, I mean, again, yes, they do. That's why we mostly don't like it. That's why you get fucking placards like "No quiero tu piropo, quiero que te mueras," which I made a song for, actually.
Everything's she's threatened. She's physically threatened because this is the real world. The real world is not like Barbie Land. In the real world, all women are victims. They are deep and abiding victims of the system. as we'll learn by the use of the word patriarchy no less than 10 times in this film.
Wow, they said in what, a 90-minute, 2-hour movie, they said patriarchy 10 times. That's, I mean, that's damning. It's almost as if we live in one.
She gets arrested like twice for various crimes. Even the police officers are rabid, raging sexists.
Wow, that's so weird. What, you're saying that the cops are reactionary assholes? I mean, that never happens.
The police officers are hitting on Barbie. They're making observations about her appearance. Ken, meanwhile, is getting super happy because Ken, who's been sort of an underling in Barbie land, now he's realizing he's part of the patriarchy, and the patriarchy is awesome. Ken is loving the patriarchy. Now,
yeah,
you might imagine at this point that the way the film is going to go is that Ken and Barbie are going to have to some sort of agreement about seeing each other as equal human beings. You might imagine that's where it's going. Wrong. That's not where the film is going to go. You might have thought that what you were going to get was Ken gets treated with respect as a person.
Well, except the point is, it's more than just respect.
And Barbie gets treated with respect as a person. And that's a better. Nope, wrong. In the end, not to skip ahead, Barbie land just gets restored and the men are still subservient. That's the best. That's the best version of the world.
Of course, this is we're getting his version of this. To guys like this, men are subservient if they're not reflexively obeyed.
Okay, so Ken is walking around and he's really enjoying the patriarchy and all of this. And he explains that men rule this world. And he goes to Mattel, and all the members of the board are men. By the way, I'd like to see a corporate breakdown of the Mattel board. I'll bet
Let me find one. I mean, it's a publicly traded company, I'm pretty sure. Mattel board members. Okay, we've got... Okay. That's one man. Okay. First, okay, 3 men, 1 woman, 3 women, 1 man. So, okay, what have we got here? Okay, 2 men, 3, 6, 3, 6. Actually, it looks like women very slightly outnumber men by 1.
I can find it. Like the CEO of Mattel for 30 years was a woman. So there's that. They pretended like Mattel is all run by men. So I just...
Well, maybe that's because... I bet there were times when it was, though, Ben. Probably not that long ago, either.
Now I want to know who's on the board.
Okay. First woman on Mattel board. Okay. Oh, okay, she co-founded it with... Okay, Ruth Handler co-founded it with her husband. They, Handlers were forced to resign from Mattel in 1975 after the SEC investigated the company for falsifying financial documents. Like, okay, first woman who wasn't a founder. First woman on Mattel board other than Ruth Handler. Not managing to Google that, but I'm guessing it's a fairly recent development that you got mostly women, especially since Ruth Handler and her husband had to step back from it over the falsifying of the financial documents.
Okay, Chairman and CEO is a dude. The board includes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It includes 5 women. So it's 6 men and 5 women.
Oh, okay, I actually had it backwards, yeah. I miscounted.
Clearly patriarchal domination. Clearly patriarchal domination.
Wow, so you're saying that because there's some women on a corporate board, that means that there's no patriarchy?
Just wanted to look that up just for the sake of, accuracy.
That's a wonderful new feature that he looks things up for accuracy.
Whenever I do these reviews, like, oh, you're taking the movie too seriously. The movie takes itself too seriously, guys.
Well, no, the problem isn't that you're taking the movie too seriously. The problem is that you take yourself too seriously.
Pretends to be a comedy, but it's taking itself super seriously. Fine. So it's all men at the top of Mattel, and they realize that Barbie and Ken have escaped Barbie Land. And this
It's almost as if this movie is using a literary device called hyperbole in order to make a point.
presents some sort of threat. What kind of threat? Because the writers are shitty, they don't bother explaining. They're just like, a threat. And Will Ferrell acts all weird and goofy, like Will Ferrell. And he's funny because it's Will Ferrell acting weird and goofy. But he's not funny because it's just Will Ferrell with no actual plot or dialogue to speak.
That's normal Will Ferrell, though. He's usually Will Ferrell without much of a plot. Like, I mean, Will Ferrell is not actually known for very plot-heavy movies. Most of the movies Will Ferrell's in rely entirely on the fact that Will Ferrell is goofy.
Speak of just being weird. We'll fill that in later. There's so many places in the script where it's basically like the writers just, they left a gap and they're like,
which is to say he didn't understand it, or he couldn't find a way to slant it into his reactionary angle.
a couple asterisks, we'll fill it in later, and then later they got there and they're like, nah, we'll just skip right over it. Fine. So they figured they got to track down Barbie and Ken. And meanwhile, Barbie is trying to track down the girl who's playing with her, and she mistakenly thinks that it is a teenage girl who is playing with her and who is unhappy. And at this point, she receives a lecture from the teenage girl about how Barbie has ruined the world and actually is fascist. How Barbie is a sexualized capitalistic emblem. How Barbie has created unattainable feminine ideals.
Yeah, I mean,
How
all actual criticisms that people have, and for fairly good reason, actually, when you look at, like, the proportions of a lot of those dolls.
Barbie is ruining the planet with rampant consumerism. You get like this full lecture right in the middle of the film. It's truly awful. It's truly awful. She's called a fascist. By the way, it only sets up the only good line of the film. Truly, in my opinion, there's one good line in the film. And that is where Barbie is trying to contemplate whether she's a fascist or not. And she says, I don't control the railways or the flow of commerce. Now, there's only one.
Okay, so she has Vosh's definition of fascism. Barbie in this movie has the same definition of fascism as Bush, where the idea is that it's fascist if the state regulates capital.
One problem with that line, as with the entire movie, there is no character consistency. Barbie is...
So, like, the best line, according to him, is somebody misunderstanding fascism. No joke required, actually. That's, I'll let that just stand on its own. No notes. This does not surprise
supposed to be
me.
an idiot bubblehead piece of plastic from Barbie Land. How does she know what a fascist is?
Well, because clearly the point is that she isn't an idiot bubblehead piece of plastic, to quote this asshole. I mean, I don't really like that particular ableist slur, and I don't really use it, but I'm quoting him. Sorry about that. I probably should have skipped over it, but the point is, clearly in the universe that she's from, she's actually a fairly knowledgeable and experienced sort of person who, like, kind of is on top of everything. She isn't, I mean, what he's already said, and I'm mostly going by him at this point, she isn't like some ditz in the Barbie universe that she comes from. She's actually, like, a very educated and independent woman who probably would know what fascism is.
How does she know about the flow of commerce? Like, again, just...
Well, because there seems to be, like, commerce in Barbie Land, I imagine. Because there's a Barbie president. There's clearly a Barbie state. So there's clearly Barbie capitalism going on. There's a Barboisie, I guess. So yeah, there's a flow of commerce.
Just in terms of character consistency, like characters who actually are the characters, makes no sense.
Unless you're trying to be consistent, in which case it kind of makes sense that she would be as, like, educated and on top of it as you would expect, even if she misunderstands fascism, which it's apparently his favorite line, except he's complaining about it because he thinks it's inconsistent, because he assumes that, like, Barbie coming from this sort of high femme wonderland, walking in a high femme wonderland, would have to be a ditz. I mean, that's just your fucking your fucking misogyny talking there, dude.
Whatsoever. So, meanwhile...
Yes, I said Barboisi. Hello, Toriel Dreamer. He knows what a good script is because he's compared the other scripts to the ones he writes. And yeah, exactly, Toriel Dreamer. I mean, I was talking about this earlier. Like, this dude had all sorts of entree in Hollywood. He has family ties, family connections to Hollywood. He has all of the advantages that most aspiring screenwriters do not have. Like actual good screenwriters who just don't have, somebody to get a leg in the door, or foot in the door, whichever. Leg up, foot in the door. But yeah. If he was capable of writing a good screenplay, that shit would have been made into a movie. Because he had the connections to get it in front of the people who could make it into a movie. Not one of his screenplays ever sold because he isn't. This is not his area. I mean, he's not very good at this either, but apparently, Daily Wire has more or less created an entire bullshit cinematic universe for him, specifically because it will be the only place he'll ever sell a script. Well, if he made a good script by Hollywood standard, a good enough script by Hollywood standards, just a script that will sell. Yeah, exactly. In his case, I mean, he had to, commit cardinal sins, maybe write the script in Book Antiqua, because there's this weird and utterly incomprehensible affection for Courier New in the screenplay world because they just want to give us fucking migraines.
Ken is wandering around, enjoying the patriarchy
Okay, this outfit makes him look like he's about to play test cricket.
more and more and more. And he keeps asking men about the patriarchy. And at one point, he asks a dude about the patriarchy, and the guy says, well, that's not really the way that it works here anymore.
Oh, thank you, Toriel Dreamer. It's always nice when when the phrases I come up totally fucking spontaneously actually are good. Good in the intended way. Sometimes they're good accidentally, in ways that I did not intend.
He says, really? He says, no. It's still...
I do a lot of unintentional and intentional humor. I'm more of a writer. I do more intentional humor when I'm writing, and more unintentional humor when I'm speaking off the cuff as I'm doing now. Yeah, holy shit, yes, I made him Popeye.
Still works that way. We just hide it really well. Again, you can't even...
Yeah, he's got nothing because he knows it's fucking true. He knows that there's nothing he can say that will actually... He can't really deny that. His audience won't actually buy it, but he can't openly because he's trying to maintain some veneer of respectability. He's supposed to be one of the respectable reactionaries. I mean, a little bit like Pim Tool, but with a more annoying voice. And so he has to just give that one a pass. He's letting that one through to the keeper, as we'd say in cricket.
Even present the mild other side of the film. And this sort of nonsense continues. The first third of the film is...
The nonsense being that there is patriarchy?
About how Mattel is kind of bad for creating this fancy land. Second third of the film is about the real-world evils of the patriarchy. Oh, the patriarchy. Oh, the patriarchy.
Wow, so... And you're saying you don't understand why huge numbers of probably largely women and girls decided to break box office records? Decided to go watch this in numbers that break box office records? I mean, you don't understand why this movie would be considered relatable to a huge audience? Ben, seriously?
Culminating in an idiotic line where one of the low-level members of Mattel is with the board, and Barbie is looking for a woman at the board, and the low-level man says, I'm a man with no power. Does that make me a woman?
That's the sort of line fucking Ben Shapiro would say, and not intending it to be funny.
No, you can't parallel park. That's what makes you a woman. Okay? And
Wow. See, this is the kind of really sort of improv zingers that surely wowed him in Hollywood.
in any case, We get here a few obscure jokes about Proust Barbie, because again, Noah Baumbach has to show that he wrote some of the script. He made it.
Well, maybe, yeah, because the thing is, there actually are people who like literature.
Reference to Proust. Doesn't that make him clever? Ooh. Next, he will make a reference, I would assume, to Victor Hugo. Wow. Proust. Ooh.
He hasn't read Proust. That's why he's not actually making a joke about Madeleine's right now. I haven't read Proust either, but I saw the episode of The Sopranos where the therapist brings up Proust's Madeleine's and explains what that reference refers to, and Tony says, that sounds very gay. So I haven't read Proust either, but I can at least explain where you would make a recognizable Proust joke. But he hasn't, and he also can't bring, despite having had time to write down his script, which is right in front of him right now, to mind, and he did not have a ready-made Proust joke. And also his audience wouldn't stand for it, because that would suggest that he reads.
Idiots who think they're smart. It's total. Okay, then Barbie escapes the Mattel building.
Which laugh?
They were going to package her up and they were going to send her back to Barbie Land. And she instead runs and she escapes.
Holy shit, now I feel old. Fucking Will Ferrell's got gray hair now.
Escapes the Mattel building. And she hooks up.
On the other hand, I fucking don't. I'm kind of, well, I mean, that's to say not so much that you would notice when on camera. The occasional one does show up in my brush.
Up with America Ferrera. So America Ferrera is the actual one who's playing with Barbie as a youth, and it's her daughter who Barbie had originally approached. Twist! Okay, and she decides that in order to escape the Mattel...
Yeah, well, it's a twist that actually, if you had taken it into account, you might actually understand who the intended audience of this thing is.
Executives.
Oh, fuck. Didn't mean to do that.
She's going to have to bring both of them back to Barbie Land. Why does she bring both?
Again, I mean, I just fucking love that dress. I want that dress, but in red and black.
Both of them back to Barbie Land? No one knows.
I mean, and in fact, give me that necklace too, but again, in red and black. That was my color combination even before I was an anarcho-communist, because I just love how those colors go together.
There's no actual... There's no explanation as to why she's supposed to bring both of them back to Barbie Land.
Oh,
Supposedly,
yes.
it's because she needs to escape back to Barbie Land, but she could do that without the two of them. But she decides she's going to bring them back. So she brings them back to Barbie Land. Meanwhile, the Mattel executives are chasing her. Now, question, why are they chasing her? They achieved their goal. Barbie's back in Barbie Land. Why are they still chasing her?
I don't know. You're not going to explain it. Why are you asking me?
No one knows. It doesn't make any sense. They literally say, there will be consequences you can't even imagine. And then...
Well, maybe the idea is that you're not supposed to bring people from the real world into Barbie Land? And that's why they're chasing her, because she's trying to bring somebody from the real world into Barbie Land?
They're like, what consequences? And like, huh?
Yeah, exactly. He is saying the whole plot and whining. I mean, every few sentences is being kind. He's whining every few words. All he's doing is fucking whining. Ah, damn it. I'm hitting the space bar to try to get back. Consequences you can't imagine. I don't think Ben has ever imagined consequences. No, that's the thing. An infant would have more understanding of this plot. Would have more understanding of the references to very common tropes in children's literature and artwork than this guy does. This guy was never a kid. He was just hatched, fully formed, like that scene in Austin Powers where he goes up to confidently to those guys and says, well, they go, the Cold War's over, Austin. And he goes, well, it's time we made those capitalist pigs pay for their crimes, comrades. And he says, no, actually, sorry, they didn't win. It's like, oh, fuck. Yeah, that is how I imagine Ben Shapiro was born. I refuse to believe that this man ever had a fucking childhood.
Fill in the blank. And some dude says something about a podcast with two trees. You're like, that's the laziest shitty writing. God. Bless it. Okay, anyway. So Ken...
As long as Ben Shapiro is still trying to write screenplays, that will never be nothing else will be the laziest writing.
In the meantime, he has already headed, while she was, futzing around over him.
Oh, fuck, what is... Oh, I'm sorry, Bloody... Bloody Nightbot. How do I shut up, Nightbot? Oh, hang on. Allow? I mean, I don't know if I want... Yes. There we go. Yeah, exactly. The Heritage Foundation, the Manhattan Institute. I love that in this country you could just call any old bullshit an institute. I can have 3 of my friends together and we can call ourselves an institute and we can register ourselves under that name as a 501c3. I mean, without anything.
Mattel, Ken is already headed back to Ken.
If Automod catches any of your comments, they do show up to me over on my Twitch window, my Twitch chat window. Yeah, it'll be an international institute. Then just let me know and I will check my Twitch chat and let it through. It was not Nightbot's fault, which is thank fuck for that, because I don't know how to stop Nightbot. Nightbot is going to take over the world one of these days.
To Barbie Land, where he has immediately established the patriarchy. So just to point out here, the point of the film is that the matriarchy is amazing.
Well, it's better than whatever the fuck you're proposing.
Women are amazing at everything. Ken walks in, and within 2 seconds, he has taken over all of Barbie Land, and he has turned it into the Kendom. Within 2 seconds. So apparently the women are so unbelievably competent and brilliant and great at everything over in Barbie Land that an idiot man walks in and takes over the whole place inside of 2 seconds.
Well, maybe the idea is that they were completely unused to conflict. So it wasn't something they were prepared for. I bet this is something, a screenplay that went this far into it, that managed to go this far with this premise, probably does offer some dialogue suggesting why it is that this is both surprising and happened because the plot requires it. Yes, we need Daybot, fighter of the Nightbot. Yeah, I mean, if an incompetent man could take that's the thing. Elon Musk has shown us how low the bar for white guys controlling things are. He has shown us how low that bar is, and fucking Ben Shapiro can't even get a second reading for one of his screenplays unless it's a purpose-built right-wing bullshit movie. It's Follywood.
Fine, so he takes over the entire
Hollywood.
place. We later learn that's because...
Which some would argue is like OG Hollywood.
The women, they didn't know what was coming. We later learned they didn't have immunity. And the way that they get immunity is by learning...
Oh, so they did explain it. I thought they probably would explain
to
it.
hate the men. That's the way. That they have to learn to hate the men. Okay, so Ken decides...
Yeah, I'm sure that's exactly how they put it.
He's going to go back and he's going to establish his patriarchal system. We only learn this when Barbie heads back with America Ferrera and Random Daughter. And
so we only find this out when we actually get back to Barbie Land, is what you're saying. We only find out what's going on in Barbie Land when the story gets back to being in Barbie Land.
And Ken immediately starts acting like the jerks in the patriarchy, right? He calls her baby. Oh, no.
Yeah, Elon Musk and the prick who came up with that submersible are, I think, the world's 2 most educational billionaires. Because with Bill Gates, you could still think, maybe they're not good people, but they're clearly very clever. But Elon Musk is bad people, and he also is just not. He's not clever.
Calls her baby.
He is the most incompetent motherfucker ever.
And then America Ferrera is trying to explain to Barbie what exactly is going on. And she's like, it's just like the indigenous people and smallpox.
Yeah, so it makes a reference to a genocide that happened. Okay.
They had no immunity. Howard Zinn wrote the script. So.
Wait, it had to be My fucking textbooks in the 1980s that actually completely glossed over the part with the deliberate genocide, completely, like, told us that indigenous people went to the West to work. Like literally just kind of imported, like, a Nazi propaganda explanations for where the Jews were going. And just sort of changed the cardinal direction involved. Even that pointed out that a whole lot of indigenous people died because of fucking diseases common in filthy-ass Europe because they had no immunity. That isn't a Howard Zinn thing. That's just, like, knowing just basic fucking facts about history.
So the ladies in Barbie Land had no immunity to the magic of the patriarchy, the magic. The women were seduced into... So, just to point out here, the actual argument the movie is making is that if women enjoy men, it's because they have been brainwashed by the patriarchy. They make this message explicit and just...
Well, maybe it's if women enjoy men like you. Because I'm seeing why he resents this movie so much. Because you have, like, this sort of incompetent, de-sexed motherfucker who is just sort of a kind of useless appendage to a female main character who actually has something going for her. And he manages, and he just feels like he's being called out.
Just a few minutes in the film. And when I say a few minutes, I mean several years, because this film took years off my life. It is long, it is...
Wow, we have another thing to thank this movie for. Go and watch it again, Ben. Watch it as many times as it fucking takes.
boring, and it's terrible. Okay, so the Kens are about to perform... None of this makes any damn sense. Okay, the Kens are about to have a vote to change the Constitution. Why? Why?
Because apparently there's a constitution in Barbie Land.
Ken literally just seized power. He's a fascist.
Yeah, and actually, it would be totally unusual for fascists to seize power and then change the constitution. Except, say, like, all over Latin America. Except, say, well, here. I mean, changing the constitution when you've already seized power, that's kind of one of the things that you do when you seize power. Because the whole idea is then you can say that you've got the law on your side and you can't be kicked out legally. That's why you do it, Ben. You're supposed to be the guy who explains politics to reactionary chuds, Ben. You should know why changing the Constitution is a useful thing to do, Ben.
What the f*** do you vote for? Why are they voting? Like, he seized power. Also, what is the breakdown demographically of the Kens and the Barbies? Are there as many Kens as Barbies? Because why would they hold the vote? The Kens...
I seem to recall this is the guy who went off on WAP because he never encountered a real woman doing that. Yes, that's right. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. He sees Ken, a guy like him, and assumes that the only way a woman could possibly actually voluntarily have anything to do with a guy like him is if there's some serious cultural brainwashing going on. And with that, alas, it is 1 a.m. and I have to wrap this up. Thank you to everyone who's joined in. Thank you, Gengeros, Henkeros. Thank you, Toriel, Dreamer, Phoenix, Adria, Ludlow. Good to see all of you always. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did making it. And if you do, please consider contributing to the crowdfunded translation project. I am only $350 short of fully funding Chapter 2, which I'm about halfway through translating. There's a lot of research involved in translating this chapter. And the information on how to contribute if you want to is right up there at the top of the screen. And if you can't and you'd like to just help out the project, signal boosting is greatly appreciated. And if you go to that Patreon, you will also find the PDFs of the 2 draft translations of the first 2 sections of the book and tasters from the current chapter I'm working on, which is Chapter 2. Have a good night. Glad to see you, and I will see you next week.